All right, welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Mike, I love this question. You get bonus points for this because we had asked on Friday what's the most important group of the Cleveland Browns, and I think we all had different. So what was the biggest question mark outside of quarterback? Because clearly it was quarterback. And Jason, I think, said offensive line.
Yeah.
I said defense, and Bull said wide receivers. And I said, well, they got a lot of questions. They're all over the place.
Real
and
quick,
I said,
10 seconds. What's your answer?
Yeah.
By the way,
might be something different.
Give me the exact question again.
So
non-quarterback?
biggest
biggest
question mark on the roster outside of quarterback.
I think it has to be O-line.
Yeah, I really like Jace too.
Because
I give you some too.
I feel like they've addressed it, certainly, because
That's
they had
exactly
to.
what I
but
said.
I don't know
But there's
that
a great
it's
unknown.
fixed.
We
Yes.
don't know how these pieces are going to fit together. We don't know if some of them can still play. We don't know if the new guys will be able to play at this level. But the question today is, which of the Browns' offensive linemen, and I think we're going to all agree on this, which one is most important?
Are you sure we're going to agree on this?
I think we are, but I could be wrong.
I bet you we don't.
Really?
And I have written my answer down, so
I
promise you.
my answer. I came up with my answer in 1.5 seconds.
I did too.
Me too. Go ahead.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Well, to me, it's Fano.
He was second for me.
To me, if it's Fano for me, because they got to get that right. That's a high pick.
Yeah.
And I said last week, even if he's not at left tackle, I think he's going to have a long career in Cleveland and have a successful career somewhere on that offensive line.
He better.
Maybe a guard or
Based on-
something. But if they miss on that,
I know. Yeah.
So it was kind of easy for me that it was going to be Spencer. I mean,
Well, maybe we don't all agree then, because he was my easy, clear-cut
I told you, I
number
don't
two.
think it's going to be unanimous.
Who do you have?
To me, it's Tyus Howard.
Wow.
He
None
was-
of us agree then.
He was the first one. That trade was done before they ever sat in a room with Spencer Fano.
Yeah.
They knew they needed a left tackle, but they were willing to make an investment in a guy who probably is past his prime, and I don't know that yet.
Yeah.
But a Super Bowl window team was willing to give up on him because they had other guys to pay, and the Browns said, "We need you. We need your stability. We potentially need your versatility.
Yeah.
We're willing to extend your contract down the road." So Fano is an important player, and he's a 21-year-old left tackle, and he might be really good. They're still going to be bumpy. It's not all about this year. For right now, headed to training camp, to me, it's Tyus Howard.
It's funny. We might have four different guys. I thought we were all going to agree. I guess. Who do you have?
I had Zion Johnson.
We have four different guys. We have four different guys.
You're going with Elton Jenkins. I'm
Yes.
assuming. Well, you give Jenkins.
I don't know how it
I'll
could
give
be
Johnson.
anybody other than him, and here's why. First of all, the center is the cog. That's the hub of
are
the
you
offensive
sure he's the
line.
center?
I am sure he's a center.
Okay.
I am. I mean, and look, that's an assumption that I'm making. I could be wrong, so I think that from the obvious standpoint that he's the one calling out pass protections, you're dealing with a lot of new part. None of these guys have played together. They're all moving parts. Communication needs to be on point. It needs to be good, and it needs to be cohesive. Everybody, he's the guy that's had success at that position, and I think that if he's good, I think it allows other people then to know that everybody else is locked in wherever they are. And my number two was Fano, just because he's a high draft pick and they've got a lot of hope for him. You're right. You better not miss.
Part of the reason their tackles were so atrocious last year is because they took a left tackle in the first round in 2020.
And it was bad.
And now here we are in 2020. You should not have to draft a left tackle
10 years.
6 years after taking the left tackle in the top 10.
Yeah.
You should not have to take
Yeah, it should
another
be
left
set
tackle.
and they were
10
2 years
10
late on actually doing it.
Yeah, that's
they
true.
were. You're right. They were. So, but I just think that Jenkins. So if you guys had to pick a second player, I go with Fano.
Wait, can I give my
Yeah, you
Johnson
gave yours, but tell me why.
A, they made him the highest paid guard in free agency.
Yep.
They selected him as a guy they believed could help solidify the interior of their offensive line. He's stepping into Joe Bitonio's shoes, by the way, which
I know.
doesn't really matter in this conversation, but you're replacing a Cleveland Browns legend.
Yeah.
He's a guy who has a ton of potential. Durability's been a strength, but he was a first-round pick by the Chargers. The Chargers' offensive line has been a disaster, and L.A. said, no, you can go.
Yep.
We're okay
Bye.
without you. He's a guy that, if they're going to run the ball in Todd Monken's offense, is going to have to be a crucial road grader up front. And if they're going to get either Shador or Deshaun Watson or whoever starts at quarterback time, they can't be facing immediate interior pressure. That is what throws off more passing plays in the NFL than anything else. This is a guy who has been picked on in the past via stunts, via blitzes, because based off what we've read and until we see it in Cleveland, I'm not saying this can't be fixed, but struggled in pass protection when it wasn't one-on-one, man up, you're in front of me, you're the guy I'm blocking. they're going to pick on him. If there's any chance of us learning if Shedeur Sanders can be a franchise quarterback, if there's any chance of Deshaun Watson becoming the guy the Browns thought they were getting in 2020, and I understand it's incredibly slim, but if it's going to happen, it's because they have time in the pocket to operate. And I think he's going to be the guy they try and pick on more than anyone else on that offensive line to try and do that. So that's why Zion Johnson, for what he's being paid, for how the Browns evaluated him in free agency, to me, may not be the best, but is the most important player on the offensive line for next season.
Interesting. We had 4 different guys.
You thought it was going to be unanimous.
I thought everybody was going to say Jenkins.
So-
I really did.
There are mixed reviews on Zion Johnson on where he's been in his career and the Browns doing this. There's a school of thought in the league that you should never spend that kind of money on a non-premium position. That if you're going to do that, you have to use draft. Now, we know what this team has just run out of draft picks or used them in other ways, and it looks like in 25 they hit on the first 4. We'll see how this goes, but that's just a school of thought of you should never be spending on a guard in free agency unless you know he's a sure thing or he's your last missing piece.
Desperate area of need.
Right. I think what gets lost in this conversation, Jay, is we knew these guys were getting older, right?
We did.
knew they were committed.
Been saying it for years.
And this was going to come whether it all came at once or not. Wyatt Teller was going to go play somewhere else. Joel was probably not going to play anymore. They went into last year thinking Cornelius Lucas and DeJuan Jones were good enough at left tackle, and that was a grave error.
Which is why I look at all of these moves, and it's kind of like, we know they have a blind spot at wide receiver, but why would I think that they're going to hit on any of these? I mean, I know they was when they got Postage, was he a free agent?
He was a second-tier free agent.
Okay.
He was coming off injury.
I mean, that was good for a minute. I thought that was fine. But the DeJuan Jones, they've had some misses. They've had some misses. And outside of Elton Jenkins, I just don't know which one of these guys has ever had great success at the NFL level.
Well, you said who's number 2? From Titus Howard would if you
Would
make
be
me
your
pick,
second?
would be my second because of the money that they gave him.
Yes,
You better get that right.
So one of the off-season stories I did here to kind of fill this gap was who's still going to be on the team in 29 when the new stadium opens, right? And you look at the cap sheet, and the only guys actually signed to contracts are this year's draft picks, right? That's just how it goes. Mason Graham, we know Fan and Schwester, they eventually will be, but Jared Verse, they're not right now.
Yeah.
But when you look at the cap sheet, Titus Howard's still making $30 million of your cap in that year.
Oh my God, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, geez. Oh my God.
And it's going to be a bigger number than that because they're going to redo the contract.
And by then they're saying the cap's going to be $420 million. We're going to be outspending. Like, this is what they do. They outspend everyone and they never win.
Yeah, that's their history.
They've outspent
Who spends
the league
more money
for
in the
5
NFL than any other team? The Cleveland Browns.
They've
Who
outspent
wins
the
less often than any other team in the NFL? The Cleveland
In
Browns.
the last 5 years, they have one winning season. They have outspent the entire league. They went into 24 with the richest roster in the history of the league. And then when they traded Amari Cooper and Zadarius Smith away, that went away, and they won 3 games.
My God. Well, the good news is, starting Wednesday, we can talk about this debacle every single day.
I texted Earl and asked him his answer.
Who do you have?
Parker Brailsford.
5 out of 5. This goes back to Friday when I said, okay, what are the biggest questions? And we had 4. We asked who's the most important player. 5 guys gave 5 different players.
Yeah.
And what does Parker Brailsford signify? The full flop to the future.
Yes, you're right.
I mean, I see where Earl's coming from with that because if he can anchor that, if he can win that starting center job, which is why I asked you earlier, are you sure Jenkins is the starting center? If by chance Brailsford can win that job, that's a huge, huge win.
It is
for this team.
It is.
That was what Earl said, by the way. His answer
not a bad
was
answer, Earl.
Brailsford, because if he can play center as a rookie, Jenkins can play guard, and the whole line just feels better.
At this rate, though, if we asked Tyvis and Bull, we'd have 7 different answers. And again, that should be like if you asked that question last year about the Browns' defensive line, who do you think everybody's going to say?
Oh, it's Miles.
Yeah, but with this group of players, I don't know. Put them in a hat, pull out a name, let's see what we got. I can make an argument for anybody.
Real quick, just because this sparked a second topic, then don't give me a reason, just a name. If we all differ, then we'll dive into this later in the week. But
all right,
who's the most important player on the defensive line?
Well, I think it's Jared Verse because of the
too.
commitment you've made to him.
Yeah, I do. And who he's replacing.
If you're trying to win and put a respectable product right now, it might be Malik Collins, who's in the last year of his contract and was awesome last year before the injury. But he's an injured 31-year-old player on a team that's trying to get younger. So it's Jared Verse because of the commitment.
I agree. I think it's Jared Verse.
Yeah. I was trying to make a case for Mason, but I think it's given the trade ramifications.
I think this this might be, if you talk about most important years, I think this is a hugely important year for Mason Graham.
I think so too, especially not having Miles now on the end.
Yeah.
And if these rookie
What is he
receivers
without
don't hit and Tedero McMillan scoring touchdowns and Mason Graham's a slightly above average defensive tackle, then that's a fair question to ask of what went on there.
Yeah.
Or Armand Membu
I just
played really well, or Kelvin Banks. There were some guys that came on after Mason Graham that turned into really good players as rookies at premium positions. So worth noting.